Welcome to Monster Monday. Today I'm going to be tackling a H.P. Lovecraft inspired film because it is an H.P. Lovecraft theme over in Killer Flicks. Last week was Stephen King and I never even got to one. I've reviewed a bunch of Stephen King, but I couldn't sneak in a Slasher Sunday or a Monster Monday with Stephen King theme because it either, the monster movies I wanted to do had sequels to it, or because they were like 3 hours or 4 hours long. It's just a pain. I was like, I can't fucking sneak these in, damn it. Oh well. Anyways, today we're going to be tackling Necronomicon, Book of the Dead. This is the French Blu-ray. It is a Region B, but oh my god, it is a beautiful transfer of this extremely unknown film that never gets any freaking praise or talked about at all, which is a damn shame because this is one of the better anthologies out there. And it stars Jeffrey Combs, and it is partially directed by Brian Yuzna. So Yuzna is obviously very well known for doing multiple H.P. Lovecraft inspired stories. He does the wraparound here in the opening with, obviously Combs, which they've worked together on the Reanimator series and From Beyond as well. And he also directs the last sequence here called Whispers. Now, this movie is about H.P. Lovecraft himself, played by Combs. We're obviously going to be talking spoilers here, as usual. But he goes in, sneaks into this place so that he can look at the Necronomicon, Book of the Dead. And when he looks at it, he starts reading and putting down the stories. And these are the 3 stories that are told. Now, 2 of these stories are actually stories within stories because they start with a character and then they're both having flashbacks. So they're telling a story through, it's weird. So he's reading a story about a person who's telling a story 2 different times. The first one is called The Drowned, and the guy who directed this later directed Silent Hill, which has a little bit of a cult following. I wasn't big on it, but I know it has a few fans at this point that are big, real big fans of it. I've tried it a couple times. I want to love it because it's very stylishly cool, and there's a lot, and it's a where is everybody story as well, which is like, my favorite thing ever. So, and the video games are cool, and I want to love those. And the second one as well, like I want to like them, but I just, for some reason, they always feel very lackluster. And anyway, so The Drowned. Now this stars Bruce Payne, which he is the Warlock in Warlock 3 Armageddon. Yes, he's been in other things, but for me, that's his movie. I reviewed all 3 Warlocks on here, and I'm actually a fan of the Age of Innocence. I said Armageddon earlier, that's the second one. Age of Innocence with Ashley Lawrence from the Hellraiser franchise. I dig that movie. Anyway, so this guy inherits a house, and the house is falling apart. The chick who seems to be trying to bang him, that's showing him around the house, is warning him, like, sell this piece of shit, get rid of it. But yeah, so she's showing us as like a real estate agent who's like keeps getting on the bed and trying to fuck him. Reminds me of some Pornhub videos that I've checked out a few times, maybe one too many times. And then we move into the flashback. So what happens here is he's going into a flashback about his great uncle or something, and his whoever this guy was, and a family member of his, he got into like a shipwreck or something. His kid and his wife ended up dying, so he casts out religion. He says fuck God and burns the Bible right there in front of everybody and casts them aside. And then he grabs the Necronomicon and he performs a ritual to bring his kid and his wife back from the dead. They come back and they got some like Langolier type demon knight green glowing eyes, and like these octopus things coming out of their mouth and like sucking on sucking on something. Yeah, talking about Pornhub. No, He freaks out and he ends up killing himself because of what he did. But before that, when he disavows God, sorry, forgot about this. This Davy Jones like monster creature thing comes in and says something like, you know, you're not alone or something. And he like pops down the Necronomicon. That creature is amazing. I want to just, for anyone who hasn't seen this and is just watching this anyways, there's a YouTube cut of this, by the way, this very version that I watched. So the real clean HD 1080p version that they have uploaded on YouTube. So look for it because it's beautiful. But the practical effects in this film are fucking awesome. Okay, they are so damn cool. And there's a lot of them, and this movie needs a lot more respect because of that alone. But yeah, so he kills himself, and then this, you know, goes back to Bruce Payne, and he is looking for the book because he wants to bring his girlfriend, his wife, whatever she is, back from the dead because he killed her in a car accident. So he does bring her back, and when she comes back, she's like going down to blow him or kissing on him, whatever she's doing down there, and then tentacles start to come out of, like, you know, she gets another squid type thing out of her mouth, and then tentacles are coming out of her eyes, and he throws her in the corner, and she's like ripping apart. She has a tentacle that's attached to her, and it pulls her down, and then he's fighting this big, huge monster creature that comes from up under the house, and she ends up just being one of its tentacles. Like, it's at the end of the tentacle is just her body. Oh, that shit's great. And then he goes upstairs and he uses the chandelier to cut it and come down and crush this thing right through the eye. Awesome. The FX on her body when she's like wrapped up and she's becomes the creature. Fuck, dude, so cool. So damn cool. And the tentacles that come out of her eyes and all that. Awesome, awesome stuff. All right, and then that pretty much ends that one. Now we move on to the segment called The Cold. Now this is from I think, I don't know what, an Asian director, I suppose, who's directed a few Gamera movies and a couple Death Note movies. So this girl moves into this house. First, it starts with this guy who's coming to figure out what's going on in the neighborhood, that there's been some killings, and he thinks it's linked to this house, blah, blah, blah. And so he talks to this woman who's wearing sunglasses, and she says that she has a rare condition. She's extremely sensitive to light and heat. So he's talking to her, and she tells the story about her mother moving to town, and when her mother moves to town, she rents a room from the house that they're currently talking in. And when she's there, there's this doctor, keeps to himself, he lives upstairs. Then when she's taking a shower, we get a nice close-up of her tits for like 2 seconds, which was nice. And then when she gets out of the shower, her stepfather comes to assault and attack her and tries to get her to blow him. And she, gets away from him, hurts him, runs up the stairs, he knocks her out kind of, and then he jumps on her, and then the doctor comes out and stabs him in the hand with a scalpel. He falls down the stairs and hits his head. She wakes up, she's all bandaged up, and then he's like, he's not coming around anymore. And then she comes back upstairs. She's got a head wound. She thinks she doesn't know what she sees, but she sees him like drilling into this guy at different points of his body. Then she goes and she gets a job at this diner, and the cops are saying this guy's missing. So she kind of goes back and confronts this guy, and he tells her, like, look, you can go to the cops, whatever, he was going to die anyways, but I would have killed him for you because of what he did. And then she finds out that this guy is like over 100 years old, and that he's been using spinal fluid to keep himself preserved, but he has to have some kind of like Dr. Freeze shit here, where he has to constantly stay in the cold, and he has to constantly keep getting spinal fluid to keep him going. This makes his girlfriend, wife, whatever this other chick in the house is, super jealous. So she comes in when they're fucking, because the doctor and the young chicks decide to start having this little affair, and she, yeah, gets really pissed at him. They start fighting. He starts melting, and let me tell you what, man, that melting scene, the jealous wife comes in and shoots the chick in the back when she finds out she's pregnant and everything. She lets her live, but when the doctor starts, like, he starts melting and he just starts tearing himself apart, kind of like the mirror scene in Poltergeist, but it is better, man. It is so cool. He is just falling apart for like maybe a minute straight, and he just keeps ripping his chest and his face, and it's fucking great stuff. Here's a tip: if you're going over to someone's house to blackmail them, or not, no, sorry, I wouldn't say blackmail, threaten, there we go, threaten them, and you think they may be a murderer who's killing people all over your town, probably shouldn't drink the drink that they give you to drink. That is so stupid to me. I think you're a murderer. Oh, you got me tea? Okay, I'll take it. So dumb. And of course, this ends up actually being the mom all along. She hasn't aged because the jealous wife kept her alive and preserved. But the downside of it is as far along as the baby was at that point, the baby is still preserved inside of her. So she's been pregnant with this baby for years and years and years, and it's kicking inside of her, and she's never going to get it to get out of her because the baby's never going to get any bigger than it is. She's going to stay pregnant forever. That's fucking nuts. I just thought that was really cool. And then we move on to Brian Yuzna's Whispers, which my memory of this was better than it was, actually. I still enjoyed it for sure, a good amount. But I remember it being way more over the top than this. And anyways, there's these two cops, and they're driving and they're chasing this criminal or whatever the hell. We don't know what he did, but they're chasing after him, and it's a man and a woman, and they're arguing back and forth. And he's like, I know we shouldn't have slept together. And she's like, I'm afraid to be a mom. So we find out she's pregnant. They get in a car wreck, and the male officer is dragged off. She goes looking for him. She runs into this guy who claims to own the building. He takes her around. She meets his wife, supposedly. We never know if that's actually true or not. Doesn't really matter. Then he takes her down into this like hole in the ground and a pit, should I say. And down in this pit, she finds her partner, lover, whatever, and the whole back of his head has been taken out, and he's just this, like, you know, open vessel for this thing to move around. So there's some monster down in that pit, and it's controlling all these other monsters that are down there. And the monsters that are down there are like stuck to the walls, and they're flying around, and they have like these little talking vaginas on them. Bum, 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 bum. It's really weird. Yes, and stuff always is, though, so nothing surprising there. But yeah, so the things that are on the wall, they look like manta rays, kind of. And they're flying around, and so we find out that the wife, possibly wife, comes down, and she has this like drill that, like, it's more like a saw that like comes out of her mouth organically, I guess, and saws her arms off. And then these manta ray things fly around, and they suck the bone marrow out because they have a sweet tooth for bone marrow. And this puts her in a hallucinatory state where she starts to think that she was in the hospital for the car wreck, and that she lost the baby. But then she's pulled back out of it because she sees the partner, and he's brain dead, and that's such great effects. The partner is like ripping him away from the bed, and his whole head is like, the whole back of his head and everything, and it's all gooey, and he's so hollow, and he looks just like the actor, the cast that they have of him and everything. It's so freaking great. And then they're just eating her alive, and she's sitting there and she's laughing her ass off. as she's getting killed. But that pit and all those, like, all the special effects that are going on down there, it's just so crazy. It's so Yasna, of course. And then, yeah, and then we kick back to the end, which is the final wraparound here, where H.P. Lovecraft becomes a badass, and this guy who comes in the room who tries to take him over, he ends up like slipping through the bars, which are a really cool effect as well. But he starts to grabs his face and he rips it back, and as he rips it back, like his face comes out, and you see like the real creature that's underneath. And then he holds H.P. Lovecraft in front of this doorway where this monster's going to come through and take him out. And Lovecraft has a freaking knife in his cane, and he stabs the guy, and then the monster comes and he fucking grabs him and takes him and rips him out of his skin suit. So his skin suit just falls to the ground, which is another great freaking looking scene there. And then, of course, yeah, Lovecraft bests everybody, grabs the Necronomicon, and goes off to become the H.P. Lovecraft we know, which is suggesting that he got his stories from the Necronomicon themselves. So he was just a vessel for these really fucked up stories, which it's kind of cool. They came from, like, the darkness. But, of course, that takes credit away from the man and himself, but it's fun to play around with in the movie. I also wanted to point out really quick, I was going to show you this guy at the beginning, in case anyone's forgotten or has never seen it. A guy named Frank Welby made me a Necronomicon. Obviously, this is more in line with the one from Evil Dead, but it looks nothing like the one in the Necronomicon movie. But because I brought up the Necronomicon, because this movie is based on the Necronomicon, and it's H.P. Lovecraft week, just makes me want to do the Evil Dead series, and I just got all 3 seasons of Ash vs. Evil Dead, so it'd be a good time. I'm just watching so many TV series right now, I don't know, but I'd love to do it, so maybe I'll do that real soon. But thanks, Frank, again for this, and yeah, how cool is this, guys? Anyways, anybody seen this? I'll try to remember to leave a link down below to the YouTube rip of this, because it isn't available any other way outside of like the French Blu-ray, and the DVDs and all that are out of print in America. It's really lame, because this movie's a ton of fun if you're an anthology fan, even though I just talked about the entire fucking film. I absolutely highly recommend it, obviously. So anyways, yeah, Monster Monday. I am going to be moving over the next couple weeks here. I got a lot of shit to do, so I don't know how much I'm going to be posting, but I will definitely do Slasher Sunday and Monster Monday as usual. So until next week, guys, adios.